Welcome back to our lecture. This is the second part of the three-part video series entitled Test Question Construction for ISTE Committee Members. I'm Maria Catherina Latherin, and we will now proceed with the do's and don'ts in creating multiple choice questions. Let us familiarize ourselves with the parts of a multiple choice question in order for us to understand each other as we go along. You have your item stem, which contains the pertinent data. Then you have your lead-in question. Then you have your answer and your distractors or alternative answers. The guide in creating MCQs are basically organized as such. We make sure that the content is specific, independent, authentic, and accurate. The stem should be clear, brief, and focused. The alternatives or distractors should be logical, plausible, and unpredictable. The format or style should be identical and vertical. And the language should be non-technical and grammatically correct. In order for you to understand these better, let us go through specific principles or rules and examples of them. The item stem. An item stem should be focused on only one fact, concept, or principle. To help you stick to the one-factor concept, you may add the one-factor concept after the word following in the question. Which of the following blank? It could be which of the following clinical features, or which of the following etiology, which of the following. Another guide is that the item stem should be able to stand on its own. An examinee who has mastery of content should know the correct answer without reading the choices. For example, which is true of acral lentiginous melanoma? Without looking at the choices, do you think the examinee with mastery of content will be able to answer it? No, because it does not specify what about acral lentiginous melanoma is being asked. On further examination of the question, you will see in your alternatives that choices A and C refer to demographic data, choice B is about etiology, and choice D is about clinical features. This question can be improved by making all your alternatives refer to only one principle. So it can be all about demographic, or all etiology, or all clinical features. Or if you're asking about treatment, you homogenize the alternatives by formulating all of them as class of drugs only, or the name of medicine only, making the changes like so. Next, the item stem is preferably written as a positive expression. We avoid using negative words such as except or not, as they create confusion. For example, which of the following structures cannot be depicted clearly on a plain radiograph? What knowledge exactly would you like to test? Is this a trick question? And speaking of trick questions, we actually need to avoid giving trick questions, because trick questions only confuse the examinee and it does not properly test whether the examinee does indeed know or not know. Here's an example of a trick question. A question with such an answer raises the question, why even ask if there is no necessary treatment? We can use the item to ask more pertinent questions. We also avoid phrasing the question as, what is your diagnosis? This question asks for the examinee's opinion, which may or may not be correct, and will open up the question to debate. We also avoid overlapping among the alternatives, and this usually refers to numbers or a range of numbers. For example, you can see in the alternatives that 5 is present in both choice A and choice C. Doing this makes choice A partially correct and will open the question for debate as to whether the examinee should get a partial score for answering choice A. We also avoid modified multiple choice questions. An example of this is this item. Each alternative has two things that you are comparing. The examinee will spend several minutes just trying to decipher everything. We fix it by simplifying. Which of the following findings in ACLE is most helpful in differentiating it from dermatomyositis? This is another example of modified multiple choice. We improve on this question by putting only one correct answer in each alternative. Another principle is avoiding wordy stems. Wordy stems create so much confusion. By the time the examinee finishes reading the stem, the examinee might have forgotten what was being asked. For example, other than having a wordy stem, this sample question also has wordy alternative answers. We also need to avoid repetitive wordings in the choices or alternatives. Here, the words repeat wide excision was repeated in choices B, C, and D, and it is not even the correct answer. To improve on this, we may put radiotherapy alone for choice C and topical immunotherapy for choice D. Another example, here the word compartment is seen in all the choices. We can improve on this by putting the word compartment in the stem. To review, the characteristics of item stem are: 1, it should have only one fact, concept, or principle, making it homogeneous. 2, it should be able to stand on its own. 3, it should be phrased in a positive expression. 4, we avoid all of these: trick questions, asking the examinee's opinion, overlap, modified multiple choice, wordy stem, and repetitive wordings in the choices. This ends the second part of our 3-part video series. See you in part 3.